If you do business, folks, today's your lucky day. I brought a real treat. Couldn't get him into the studio because he's freaking all over the place, but I got him via Zoom, Mr. Jay Abraham. How are you?
I'm good, Brad. How are you?
Man, I'm even better now that I get to chat with you for a moment. Bring this knowledge, this knowledge that's been storing up for years. See, folks, if you guys don't know who Jay Abraham is, might be because you're too young, number one, and he's been making millions since most of us were shitting in our diapers. Right? He's the king of triple layering. He's freaking a haberdasher. When you see him at live events and stuff, he's the slickest dressed dude there. He's been making money for years and years, but ultimately how he made his money is he would take a look at someone's business or operation in some form or fashion and basically notice 15 things that person didn't notice, or, observed something nobody observed, to ultimately extrapolate additional millions out of the same existing business model. Is that accurate?
It's pretty accurate.
And then he on top of it did it with celebrity type names. In other words, like Tony Robbins and Damon John and all these, household name brands and whatnot, by just going in there with a perspective for marketing that kind of, I wouldn't say thought outside the box. I would say acted like there was no box, like databases and such. Like, people don't know the value of a database. And, before anyone knew a value of a database, Jay, you obviously recognize the value of a database. And you're like, dude, you got 7,000 people that bought your shit over the last 10 years and you've never sent them a damn email. And then they send an email that you helped them write, and all of a sudden they carve out another $3 million in revenue and they didn't even think of it. But I mean, that was way back. Like, you've been making shit tons of money for shit tons of time, no?
Yeah, you're dating me, but I've had a lot of years of helping people uncover hidden assets, overlooked profit opportunities, underperforming revenue activities all over the world.
Hey, and I noticed that you've got quite the vocabulary. Now, why did you get some sort of master's degree in communications?
No, quite the opposite. No, the opposite, Brad. I got married at age 18 and had two kids at 20 and no education. And I was always fascinated with precise communication. And so, as I was trying to eke out a livelihood in my young adult years, every day I would I bought a cheap soft count version of the thesaurus, and every day I'd find 5 words and I'd use each word 25 times a day until I really mastered a lot of very precise communication skills. But I know I don't even have a bachelor's. I have, I think, 3 hours in college, and then I got thrust into marriagedom, parentum, and then eking out a livingdom.
Well, you look like some sort of like freaking professor slash billionaire that's, almost like a movie director, very artistic, very creative. Are you creative?
I think that I've been blessed to be influenced by so many innovative thinkers, nonlinear thinkers, amazing thinkers, that it's given me this massive context that I can draw from. And the answer is, yeah, I probably, with all clinical truth, I can probably look at a situation and find more ways to monetize something people think they've taken to completion. Not because I'm so brilliant, but I just have been exposed. I've done 1,000 industries, Brad, and when you have that kind of a reference frame, you can draw all, because most industries do the same thing the same way as everybody else, and they only know sort of follow the herd, deer in the headlights, what everybody else does. And if you understand how many higher, better, faster, safer, more profitable ways there are to do things, I mean, for example, just to have fun with you, we have most people who get, and this is the lower end of a business, but most people who get the majority of their business from word of mouth or referrals don't even have one referral strategy. We have 125. Most people who understand what an affiliate program is, it's very superficial. We have 43 deeper, more holistic ways that I've done over my career for myself and my clients, and on and on and on and on. Strategy, business model, value proposition, ancillary ways to, take a buyer and find 3, 4, 5 more ways to monetize it, sunk cost marketing, where you got all these leads that never bought and, ways to remonetize them, all kinds of things, but they're not because I'm probably pretty good now, but because I've been exposed to so many different industries that have figured out a lot more things than most people know about when they spend most of their life in one.
Mm. So the average entrepreneur listening, maybe, and by the way, I consider a dentist an entrepreneur.
They are.
I think everybody at the end of the day that has a business or took any financial risk whatsoever is an entrepreneur. Now, if an entrepreneur is listening to this, but they've got something cranking already, they're doing decent 7 figures. What do you think they should look at to try and start identifying ways to take that to 8 figures without massive change or investment?
Yeah, and most of what we do for others and people taught me is how to grow with very minimal investment or risk. Well, the first thing is most people, Brad, well, I've got a lot of methodology, and I'll use some of it just as a framework for answering your question. So the majority of people in business generate the majority of their business from one source, access vehicle, can be Facebook, can be distributors, can be it can be search, it can be before COVID, conference exhibits. But the easiest way to massively, there's 3 ways to grow any business. I'll go to Jabraham 101. You increase the number of buyers, leads, and then buyers. You increase the size of the transaction and the profit it generates. You increase the frequency or the utility of the value of the buyer. That means you either get them to buy more often, buy other things, or be valuable for other things you can do with them, other ways you can monetize them. There's 3 advanced ways you can grow that business. You add 1 new product or service every month, or every year. You penetrate 1 new market or niche every year. You acquire 1 either competitive or compatible business every year, preferably on an earn-out where you don't put any money up and you basically know how to make it market better. But you could buy a business that is competitive and consolidate it. You can buy a business that is complementary, and complementary can mean 2 things. For example, if you and I, Brad, were selling an oral supplement for weight loss, an appetite suppressant, you could buy another oral supplement and you could consolidate it. Or if you think about a weight loss buyer, I don't know about you, I've tried lots of ways to lose weight and I'm still trying and not doing very well at it. But somebody who tries one thing usually tries many things, either concurrently or ongoing. They'll try portion control food, Jenny Craig Weight Watchers. They'll buy equipment. They'll buy either private or group personal trainer. They'll buy recipe books. You can compete against yourself. We've had a lot of clients that we bought a business that was, I asked, what do people do buy before, during, after, instead of what they buy from you? So if you sold something very expensive, but you knew, as an example, Brad, that people buy something else before that, if you owned that kind of a business, you would have an advantage because you'd have preemptive and early access to the buyer before everybody else. So there's all kinds of ways you can do this if you understand strategic thinking.
Mm. Now, you don't go in there and teach people strategic thinking. You just go in there and do it.
Yeah, I used to teach a lot, and I went through interesting cycles. When I started out, all I did was find companies with a lot of moving parts in the revenue system, and I would either make what they were doing produce more for no more money, or I would find new things they weren't doing, new ways to monetize, new sources, new distribution channels, new product services, and I'd get a piece of it. And then quite accidentally, I got into the seminar business. And I'll tell you the story. It's a little bit embarrassing, but it'll take you full circle. So I was making more money when I was 27 doing this than most of my clients, but I went through a massive divorce, which I wouldn't recommend. And it cost me everything I had, and I didn't work for 2 years. And I decided to go back to contingent marketing, profit sharing, performance based marketing, but I couldn't remember what had made me great. It was very intuitive. I thought, okay, I'll do one little seminar, but expensive, to force me to think through, codify what I wanted to do. And I had made so much money for all these influencers, Tony, Success Magazine, all the financial newsletters, the seminar companies. And I asked them all to promote, thinking I'd get 20 or 30 people, because we asked $15,000. And this was when most seminars were about 500. I thought I'd get 20 people. I got 350. And I went, oh, wow. It was very profitable. And I thought, let's try it again. And did it again and again. And I accidentally got in the seminar business, and we did about $250 million. And after a while, I got tired of being theoretical, and I went back to what I was doing before, but I did it just on very high fee basis. And now I'm at a point in my career where most of the time I don't teach anymore, except for very occasionally. I've got a couple of partnerships around the world with, some mastermind groups that I do with partners in France and in the dental. You talked about the dental industry. I have a partnership with the top expert at teaching general dentists how to do implant surgery as a sub practice, because it'll make them an extra $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. But I do mostly work with clients now. It's a very protracted answer, and I need to disclaim I'm a poster boy for adult ADD.
Well, it's all valid and worth listening to, so that's good. You can ADD down an avenue, and I'll bring you back if I think it's ever losing value.
Okay, thank you.
Because people are listening, and at the end of the day, the shit that used to work doesn't necessarily still work, but there's a lot of shit that used to work that does work. But it's not about, the technology or the medium. It's about, I think, a different viewpoint, a different perspective. Maybe that you're gifted, and other people, they can sit there and stare at their business all day long and never see it. Why? And they never would see it. Why? Well, because they're inside the freaking business. Yeah. Where you come along, and not to mention all that experience and all the things you've experienced and saw that would apply instantly, not to mention all that, just you're looking at it from a different perspective. And so you can see shit the people in the business can't see.
Yeah, I'll give you, because I try to explain this sometimes to people, and it's a little hard, but I explain it 3 ways. Number one is, I wouldn't wish this on people, but when you've literally been on the front lines of true capitalism in 1,000 different industries, not just here, but around the world, even through translation, and you've had to really learn the industry, but also validate your assumptions, you have a much richer context. But there's another sleeper to this that's actually, it's turned out to be a godsend. Over my career, Brad, I've had the wonderful, wonderful good fortune to help about 300 experts like yourself. But I helped, obviously, Tony, I helped Brian Tracy, I helped the number one expert in the world on Six Sigma, I helped the number one company in multivariable testing, I helped the number one company in strategic litigation consulting. I helped Stephen Covey.
Damon and Tony swear by you.
Yeah, they're very gracious. But here's what happened with these other experts, Tony as well. None of them came to me for help with their methodology. They already had it nailed. Like you have great sales and marketing of your own, but they came to me for help to command more value, to get people to buy them instead of somebody else, to see the absolute, the impact that value could mean, to elevate them above the maddening crowd. But, and this is where the answer to the question is a little bit complex, I had to get a short course distilled, sort of a compression, rapid understanding of their methodology in order to be able to do anything with it. So I got all these people, and I learned not just hard things, I don't mean hard, difficult, but soft skills. Believe it or not, Brad, there's Stephen M.R. Covey, who's the world leader on trust building, has found ways to multiply the impact anyone could have, a leader, salesperson, marketer, advertising, if you have 13 characteristics that you incorporate in how you conduct yourself. You may or may not know Sally Hogshead, but she's figured out that how you are seen by somebody, if you do it right, and you can get a 300% impact. Roger Love, a guy who's masterful in strategic communication, has the same thing, how you are heard. We've figured out, I think we've got now 98 categories of performance enhancement, each one of which can produce literally exponential type yield for no more risk. When you understand all that, and most people would never in a career have done that. And I wouldn't, it's very hard. I mean, it wasn't quite as easy as it seemed, but now fast forward many, many, many years, and I've been doing this and I've had to do it. Nobody comes to me with easy problems or questions, and they don't even know the questions to ask. They don't know the opportunities that exist. They don't know the problems that really have to be solved. But if you've done it around the world and you understand it, it becomes very easy to open up windows of opportunity they never saw.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If people are listening to this and they want you to do it, it doesn't sound like you have a course to sell them to show them how to do it. But I do know that depending on the business, it's not any business, but if they call you and you do a little audit or something, you could end up doing it for someone zero out of their pocket, perhaps, and make millions of additional dollars. Yes, is that right?
My model is pretty straight. If it's a certain kind of business, we get a one-time fee, and the rest is it's against. If they're big enough, they have enough moving parts in the revenue system, and the deal's right. Excuse me, let me turn this off. And the deal's right, we do it on pure performance. So either way, if they've got a business, and I would say that, I mean, just so not to be showboating, but we have so many. I mean, I've done in strategic alliances. We have 43 ways to do it. We've got 25 ways to make a business more relevant. We've got all these things that I've done for people. I mean, I've even done barter profit centers for car dealers that have made millions of dollars by saving them on fixed expenses they would normally make. I mean, there's all kinds of things that most people in business don't think about.
But if people
on
are,
the revenue side.
Yeah, but if people are listening to this, normally I'll sit there and pick your brain about how do you do it, so then they could figure out how to do it and maybe it helps them. But in this case, it sounds like there's even a better option, and that is to let you do it. The question is if I'm listening to this, I don't know if my business qualifies. So if I called you or went to some website, or how do you know what businesses you prefer to help? Like right now, if all these people in the bomb squad have a business, they're interested in letting you go through it to see if there's an opportunity to do business with you, how would they get a hold of you? They're going to listen to this and people are going to be like, dude, I want them to do that shit for my company.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to get a hold of me, but I'll give you a criteria. And also I'll be happy. We have and I wouldn't ask them to answer. We have a 200 question assessment that I give people to try to answer. Most people can't, but it shows them correlations, implications, relationships they never thought that they could capitalize on. But as long as they have a reasonably profitable business, our preference, frankly, is at least 10 million. But if it's smaller and the opportunity is there, I'm open to anything. But if they have moving parts, if they have a lot of activities in the revenue system, a lot of leads, a lot of emails, a lot of ads, a lot of prospects, a lot of salespeople, a lot of repeat transactions, a lot of distributors, a lot of franchisees, or anything reasonable. And if it's a very high ticket quality product or service that could be blown up easily, and they have the capacity, it's very important. If I'm going to get involved fully or mostly on profit sharing, revenue sharing, or basically pure performance and get paid for results, they got to have the capacity to really, to take advantage of what we can do. And they got to have the ability to implement, because I don't do heavy lifting, and I don't mean that arrogant. I do strategy, I do business model, I do orientation, I do framing of whatever it is, communication, selling, ads, etc. But if you're big enough, I'll look at them and I'll invest. I will buy them my time if they're, but I would say if they're not, then I'll still give them something nice, as long as they're sincere. But I would ask only because I do it very seriously. If they're serious, connect. I don't want to have to chase anybody. I'm not a
Hey,
I don't.
so where would they reach out to you? Just because maybe you just eliminated half of them, I'm sure, that are just trying to get shit started, but
Yeah.
the other half that are like, hey, I qualify for that. Where do they reach out? How do they get a screening or some sort of how do they get a hold of you?
If they, it's very easy, and thank you for that. They can just go to jay@abraham.com and give me like a paragraph. Say, here's the kind of business I'm in. Here's the market I serve. Here's the rough size of my business. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And then you can also give me, if you will, the main driver of how you've been generating your revenue.
And
Or if
put
there's
and
one.
put and put in the subject line bomb squad.
Yeah, I
So
love that. I love that name. That's so cool. That's great. I love it.
yeah, put in the subject line, folks, bomb squad to that email, JAY at Abraham.com. Put what he just said in there. Someone in the show notes will write that down. But that's how you submit a little ticket into the Abraham world of
And,
critical and
and,
profitable
and
thinking.
yeah, and Brad, just as a courtesy, because we do sell a few things, but I'm not going to pitch selling of things. I have a couple of great books that are really they're quite impactful, and I'll give you one or two of them that you can put on your own website. I'm sure you have a bomb squad, and I'll give them to you without you having to link to me, so that people can, the smaller companies can get access, because they're very, very helpful, and they've helped people make a lot of money relative to their business. So I like to contribute to everybody.
Well, that's nice of you there, Jay. Hey, the Ultimate Entrepreneur podcast, by the way, is something maybe you guys should all go also subscribe to. Jay, is that your podcast? Are you talking about marketing shit all day, or is it what kind of podcast?
It's very eclectic. It depends on the mood. I never do the same keynote twice. Most people that do a keynote don't want their keynote public, but I never do the same one twice. So whenever I do a keynote, we put it up. I always get the joint rights to it. Sometimes I'll put up joint things that I do with Tony or Damon. Sometimes I'm interviewing others. Sometimes they're interviewing me, and we put it up. It's very eclectic, but we don't sell anything. There's no, it's not hypey. It's just all
You got
sort
a
of, yeah.
you got a YouTube channel?
I don't know. I don't even pay attention
Dude,
to it.
you
I
got to
think
get a YouTube channel, Jay.
geez, I mean, I'm oblivious, man. I'm a mad scientist. I think Evan Carmichael has one of mine that he runs. I believe we do. Brad, I, I'm too busy basically doing it, and I don't really spend a lot. I got people that do it, but I'm oblivious. I don't even turn my computer on half the time.
So let me ask you a question. Let's take back. Like, where'd you grow up?
Sure. Indianapolis, Indiana.
Like Beaver Cleaver family, both parents there.
I came from, my parents were Jewish, and they were semi serious about it. I grew up in a middle class. My dad was a salesperson, never made a lot of money, but a very good man and very honest man, good values, fun loving,
Never learned
charming.
how to sell.
No, I mean, I learned, I was very intuitive. Here's the story. It was really interesting.
Oh, no, hold on though. I'm talking about your dad because you said he's a salesman, but he didn't make much money.
Yeah, he was. There's two kinds of salespeople. There are order taker salespeople, and there are sales maker. He was the kind that would go, and he sold paper product. Very nice man. Paper products initially, and he had a route. He'd have drugstores when they had soda fountains and restaurants. And he would sell paper cups and straws, and then he got into the liquor business, and he would go to liquor stores and restaurants and bars, and he would sell them. But it was more of a order taker type, as
Got it.
opposed to you and I, who would make things happen. So he was a very nice man, but he wasn't really high income selling. He was more of a order taker,
Rep.
maintenance, but a very nice man.
Like he was a sales rep with a route.
Yeah, exactly. Well stated. And then it was very fine. It supported us. He didn't have a lot of stress, because he would be done at 5 o'clock and work 5 days, unlike probably you and I, who work all the time.
So you're growing up in that household. Sounds like, you got a pretty solid, stable household. Did you decide to go to college or no?
I did, but I fell in love too early and got married and had kids right away, and had the need of somebody 40 with no education or no negotiable skills. So I was sort of in a very interesting quandary with what to do.
So what employer saw Jay Abraham walk through the door and ask for a job?
This was so cool. Nobody would give me really a salary, but a lot of crazy entrepreneurs who turned out to be massively great mentors gave me the ability to have a desk or a phone and take a piece of whatever I could create. You sort of eat what you kill. And when you only eat when you earn, you figure out what works and what doesn't, and then what works better. But because this is part of the beginning of my success, Brad, because I wasn't being paid for time, I had the luxury of doing as many things as I wanted at the same time because I was only getting paid on results. So I would do 6 or 8 things all the time, but they never were in the same industry. And I realized very quickly, wow, people in this industry don't have a clue how people in this and this think. They don't market, sell, they don't do anything the same way, not because it's better. It's just they just don't know it. But you can take elements from this and you can translate it, and they don't even know about it. So it's like the one-eyed man and the land of the blind. The land of the blind. I'm talking with my mouth full. But these guys, and I had really bright ones, and they would teach me how to fill needs, and they would teach me how to identify niches. And they were really brilliant people. I mean, the guy, one of the first jobs I ever had, if you want to call it a job, was Icy Hot. We took, now everyone knows what Icy Hot is. Nobody knew when we started. We had no money. We had no market. We had to create. My job was to set up a revenue sharing deals with radio stations, television stations, magazines, everything that would let us run ads when they had unsold advertising, let them keep all the first sale was a mail order product. And we basically wanted the repeat sale. And I had to persuade them to trust us, to run it. It was very complex, but we turned it from a $20,000 product to, like a multi, so a 10-figure product in a year for no investment. And we accidentally forced retail distribution, and we sold it for 60 or $70 million 40 years ago to a pharmaceutical company. But that was my first experience.
Did you get a big fat piece of that?
I got a piece of it, but it wasn't as big and as fat. I was, when you're young, you don't understand you don't understand what a piece is worth, and you also don't understand exit. You're going, wow, I'm talking about when the average income was 25 grand. If somebody gives you $250,000, you're pretty happy, Brad, even though they pocketed 60 million.
Yeah. Well, when did you get the taste where you went out and bought the fancy cars and the triple layered clothes? And
I'll tell you, good and bad. When I was in high school, I lusted after a Cobra, or do you know what a Morgan is?
No, I know what a Cobra is.
It's an English sports car. It's got a built-in a spare tire in it. It's very sexy looking little convertible. And I couldn't afford even, my first car was a 56 Ford Biscayne that didn't have brakes or a heater. And I couldn't afford to even put a new radiator in. Every time the radiator leaked, my dad gave me liquor. I poured liquor and oregano in the radiator so it would fill it up temporarily so it wouldn't leak. But when I did Entrepreneur Magazine, and we grew it really fast. And that was the first time I could afford a really nice car. And I had, this is hilarious. I was helping somebody on the side, and they leased me a Mercedes SLC, which at the time was the highest level you could get in a non-custom version. And I'll never forget this. Here I've gotten older. I'm 5'6.5". I was 5'8". And I had a friend from my previous job when I got my first Mercedes, and I drove to their house and parked out front. And the guy opens the door, and he's a tall guy, and looks at me, looks at the car, looks at me, and says, "You don't look any taller." But after that, I started really, when I got into my own, I was able to trade because, if I was doing fee-based, I would charge a lot of money. For example, I mean, it's funny. I've traded for Rolls Royces, Bentleys in my front yard right now. Brian, and I've got a brand new NSX that they sent me. I just got rid of a GTS that somebody else traded me. I got and I'm not saying this arrogant, it's just fun. I traded for a G-Wagon, and so I got into it because I always wanted them. But I'll tell you the truth, anybody that has cars, the greatest thrill a car gives you is the vicarious thrill you give somebody else when they drive by thinking they wish they had it. Whether it's, I had Ferraris, I've had Porsches, 911s, 930s, and it's fun, but it doesn't, it's not, it alone isn't going to change your life, although they're very beautiful pieces of design. They're very beautiful pieces of engineering, and they are fun. I mean, the NSX is a giggle to drive, but it alone doesn't change your life. But I've owned a lot of cars since I was able to, and more I got into understanding barter and understanding my own value, I was able to exchange for cars. So I've had more cars than you can imagine.
You're sitting in a cellar. Looks like. Are you a wino?
My wife, this is funny. You may or may not remember this. There was a famous movie called Bottle Shock. Did you ever see it?
Bottle shock. Don't think so.
It was a movie that chronicled the birth in California of the boutique wine industry. And my wife, who I met when I was going through a divorce, was involved in the boutique wine industry when they first moved from jug wine to really quality wine. And she loved wine, and she loved the creativity and the fact that wine is alive, the really quality wines. And I have four boys with her, and all of them are named after wines. One's named Ridge after Ridge Winery. One's named Jordan after Jordan Winery. One's named uh, Sage after Sage Winery. One's named Zane David after ZD. And all of this is really high quality wine that she loves, and we drink it. But it's almost an art form, because we admire the fact that quality vintners and winemakers are they're very creative and they're very passionate, and I like that.
You're like an old Renaissance, you know, like a mad scientist genius type. You know,
Yeah.
you're very distinguished. Where'd you learn all that from?
I was influenced by, I mean, I've been blessed. I've been exposed to people so far above my intellectual or my financial pay grade, but I was never a threat, and they found me sort of fascinating enough that they would, trickle a little bit of their sophistication or their intelligence or their business acuity or their humanity on me. And I just, I sopped it up like a sponge, Brad.
Do you play chess?
Not a lot, but I play three-dimensional business chess very well.
Do you game at all? Backgammon, shush
No,
besh.
no, no, but I've been, I've helped. I've been become very good at strategic thinking, critical thinking, consequential thinking, and I understand very, very. And again, this is clinical. I have lots of flaws, but I've been taught to think about many moves ahead, probability outcome, how to question assumptions, because if the assumption's wrong, everything that flows from it is wrong. How to predict what markets will do, probability outcome, contingency, hedges, and it just keeps. I mean, the more I work with different industries, the more it just layers. So I mean, just it's a cumulative effect of
Are
having done
are,
it.
are you
Most
all,
people have never done it this many places, this many ways, with this many industries, and it just sort of all congealed into some kind of a unique skill set, I guess.
you read a lot?
I used to read a lot, but now I've got a lever. I have so many clients that read a lot. I make them distill what they find out of it and share with me, so I don't have to read a lot. But I've helped so many experts that I get them firsthand to share with me not just the essence, but the true basis behind it. One of the things that I learned years ago, and this was made a profound difference. I spent money that I didn't have to retain one of the greatest marketing experts of the time to teach me. And he recommended, before Amazon was ever in existence, a bunch of books I should read. That it cost me a fortune because we had to find bookfinders. But he said, try to find, first of all, books where somebody explains their principles, their beliefs. Then see if you can find a biography or an autobiography to learn the actual experiences they have encountered so you understand context that caused them to find and make those beliefs. And then, if at all possible, find other books from people that either they were associated with or were operating in the same world at the same time to get reality checks. And I did that. It gives you this enormous understanding that you would never get just from reading the book, the principles of a person by itself. So I learned from masters how to really get a comprehensive, not just an understanding, but a deep and a rich insight into the mind of different people. And it's been very, very effective for me.
So you've never decided that, hey man, I'm gonna just like open up a big ass agency and have thousands of people, performing these services for business all over the country. You've always kept a little bit, you
Yeah,
know.
very, yeah. I mean, I would fire myself. We were talking, you said something, and I wanted to say I'd fire myself if I were my own client because I am hopelessly curious. And when you're ADD, you need to be doing a lot of things. And I can't run a business as operationally. I'm very good at strategy, marketing, business model, positioning, elevating the stature, figuring out how to make everything they're doing do more, all kinds of things like that. But I can't do it myself. If I were reliving my life, which is a little difficult at this juncture, but I would have just probably partnered with somebody. I should have gone into private equity world or things like that. I have friends in the hedge fund business, and I find the mindset very sophisticated. But I took a path when I was younger that was very entrepreneurial, and I've been very blessed. I mean, I got to do it. I used to go all the time to Asia. I've been to Singapore 20 times. We used to go to China a bunch of times before everything blew up. We used to go to Vietnam and Malaysia and
What would you do there?
France. And yeah, pardon.
What would you do there?
Oh, I have methodology. I would do one of two things. We used to do $5,000 and $25,000 seminars, which were very fascinating because we had to do them through translation to very large groups. And I mean, a lot of the Asian market at the time, it's probably different, but they tended to be very tactical thinkers because they were educated in rote education. So if I would say to somebody from Asia when I started going there, uh, you know, the number 100 divided by 25 plus 4 square root minus 6 plus 12, they'd have an answer like that. But if I said this is to this, as this is to what, their mind wasn't disciplined to understand that. I taught strategic thinking, critical thinking, residual yield based thinking, allowable cost based thinking, value creation thinking, lifetime value. I mean, I was teaching lifetime value, strategic
Yeah, but these,
alignment so
Jay,
long
these,
ago.
I don't want to interrupt you, but these words right here from the average Joe, because I always put myself, hey, if I'm listening to this, what am I
Yes.
thinking? These are
Yeah.
big. Well, they're not big, but they're buzzwords that I think only the people in the know even how to translate everything you're saying. Like you're rattling them off like they're nothing, but in reality, some people have never even heard some of the words you're saying.
You
You
want
know?
me to address that?
No, no, no. Shit, we'll be on here another 4 hours.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, they're powerful understandings that give you this enormous ability to really explode performance by understanding relationships between transactions, residual value, repeat. They just give you psychology, mathematics. I'll tell you something really fun. My latest work, which is pretty cool, and this is really mind blowing, Brad, and I'll give you some fun examples that anybody can understand, is how to take profit performance literally beyond exponential, which sounds unimaginable. But I've, over the course of my career, identified now 98 different categories that each can produce geometric or exponential profit improvements. And I always wondered what's geometry on geometry on geometry. And I was so lazy, I never looked it up. And then about a year ago, I looked it up on Google, and this is pretty cool.
Quantum.
Mathematically, there's 5 gradients of performance that are beyond exponentiation. Exponentials here, and there's 5 levels mathematically above that: tetration, heptation, pentation, octation. Can't remember the other tation. But my thesis is, if you can perform well above exponential, why in the world would you ever want to do anything on the revenue side of your business in the incremental zone if you can always do it in the exponential? And the only reason you wouldn't is you don't know what's available. And I got trained.
You don't know any better.
I got trained years ago, and one of the great influencers was the Deming organization. Deming is the man that went to Japan. People that are my age would know this, in the 60s and 70s, and taught the Japanese how to go from crap mongers, they made just terrible things, to the Toyotas, the Mitsubishis, Panasonics. And he was all about process improvement, highest and best use theory, optimization. And I learned how to take optimization into the revenue side. And optimization means you want to get maximum result for minimum time, effort, risk, or investment. And there's methodology to it. And I don't want to get too dizzyingly abstract, but yeah, all this is it's very scientific, but most people never learn it.
Well, it's costing them millions of dollars. So again, we either start learning it, or, go to at abraham.com and freaking give them a little paragraph.
You're a good benefactor. That's very nice. Thank you. But yeah, I'm always looking for interesting companies whose profit I can massively multiply and share in the results.
And you just want a little piece for your niece, a little sliver to deliver, a little fraction of the action.
I love it. I'm going to borrow all those phrases. I like them. They're cool.
Yeah. Who said it the other day? They said they're going on a May vacation. That's where they may come back. They may not.
That's funny. I love it.
So social media is at Real J Abraham. If you guys want to follow him, you're on Twitter mostly, or IG mostly.
I don't know. I have people doing it for me. I have no idea.
So what does your day consist of? You wake up. Where do you live? First of all, aren't you in California?
Yeah, I'm in the Los Angeles area. I live in an area called Palos Verdes. It's very beautiful. It's countrified. You got horses running around. You got peacocks. They have sign pollution, terrible cell coverage, but it's very beautiful. And it's like Santa Barbara. It's very, very serene.
Do you smoke
back-to-back consults usually?
Do you smoke a pipe with an ascot on?
No, I don't, but I probably look like I should. Yeah, I used to be very much into clothes, as you know. I got a lot of suits, a lot of ties that are very distinctive, but I just sort of hang around now in my Lululemon shirts and the other day I put on one of my expensive sport coats just to do a video. And I thought, geez, I haven't worn that since the beginning of COVID. So it's pretty funny.
Do you think your flair for dressing came from doing a lot of work in Asia? Because over there, I think they want the people that they do business with to look successful.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. Part of it came from the early work I did with Tony, where he talked about pattern interrupt. And so also the next was, I was fascinated with a lot of artists when they perform. And so when I used to go, and again, people were paying me for the time, we would do, $5-10 million, seminar gigs, that the responsibility, the performance expectation on me in regard to transferring an experience through translation in China, Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, France, Italy, wherever I was doing it, was enormous. So I wanted to use every ethical advantage I could get. So when I used to do these, I would travel with 20 different suits, 50 different shirts, and I had $1,000 and $5,000 very beautiful and distinctive ties. And I would change every 2 hours, and I would make sure the change was so dramatic, whether it was light to dark or reversal or just whatever it would be, to get their attention and keep them engaged and trying to figure out what he was going to do next purposely. But I think, yes, if you're going to be depicted or presented or acknowledged as, let's call it, the in there. I mean, I was for many years the top guy from the West that went to China and all these places. You got to live up to not just the knowledge, but you need to have a posture visually as well as intellectually, as well as being able to validate. You got to give them examples they can validate. You got to slowly, methodically make the connections. And it was a very integrated theory. I used to take it very scientifically and strategically, but now, I like cool clothes. I like beautiful sport coats, suits, tie. I mean, we have more ties for 2 years, but I have a collection of ties that just very, very impeccable and very beautiful.
Are they
Handmade.
insured?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I always like to look. I always felt that if I look like everybody else, then I wouldn't be distinctive. And everything about my posture had to be, it had to be not arrogant, but it had to be commanding to achieve the transfer of to get the reverence, to get people to revere the power of the methodology. People used to think when I did seminars I was arrogant. I was never arrogant about myself, but I was very arrogant about the methods and the techniques and the principles and the strategies, because they were so much more powerful than most people were accustomed to. And I needed to do everything in my power to get people to recognize the enormity of commanding advantage they would give people.
Hey, you remember you sent me a trailer of the Jay Abraham story. Like, what is that? A documentary? What is that, dude?
Yeah, it's a documentary, a group of people who had been influenced by me through, I don't know, 500 grand into a pot, and a guy who is a 13 or 14 time Emmy Award winning, filmographer, documentarian, made this really fun documentary. And he interviewed Tony and Damon and the guy that's the number one guy in Six Sigma and Theory of Constraint, and a bunch of clients, and Brian Tracy. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's not as good as some of the ones out there. I mean, we know of a couple of them that transform people's whole career.
Where do they go see that? Because there's going to be people going, dude, I haven't really heard of this dude, but I bet you this dude's got some shit to say. Because again, dude, you're not. I mean, I've known about you for a while. You're definitely well known in the world, and a lot of big people know who you are. But you know how many people out in the world have never heard of Jay Abraham?
I know. It's a little bit sad to me, not economically, but I would like to contribute to more people. I used to be. I mean, I'm when you get when you've done as many things, and when you're more fascinated with working one on one than you are in group, you stop doing all that. I mean, I still have people that sell stuff of ours. They can find nice things that are affordable, but yeah, they can just find it's the jabrahamstory.com, and I think it's readily available, and it's pretty cool. It's about 48 minutes, and
Well, that'll give them a real good idea of who you are, what you've done, what your credentials are, especially if they're listening to my show. I barely read bios and whatnot. And I want to make sure people get an opportunity to say, now, this guy's been doing this for, when I say centuries, I don't mean obviously because you're not that old, but I mean, since you were 20 some years old, you didn't go to college and get a corporate job and then eventually fall into this shit. You just started doing it, and you've been doing it your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And how old are you right now?
You want me to really tell you?
Yeah, you ain't a girl. You're not supposed to ask girls. You can ask dudes.
I'm 72.
See, 72, you look freaking not a day older than freaking 55, 60 at the max.
I have to, it's like the portrait of Dorian Gray, but I have to look good because it's part of the persona, but I'm very blessed. I have great genes. My dad always looked very good, and I don't eat a lot of fattening foods, and I've been blessed. I've helped so many industries. I help a bunch of longevity people, and I do a lot of stuff to keep my body and my mental agility.
But if someone could go watch the actual movie of your life, dude, you've seen some shit.
Yeah.
You've done some shit.
Yeah,
You've
that's
been
true.
you've been in rooms around people where I'm sure you thought to yourself, "Holy shit! I'm sitting here in a room with all these people talking about this, doing this
Yeah.
in this location." And it all started with what? Like it's like
Oh yeah,
usually.
no, no, I do this all the time. I mean, I've been around the world figuratively 81 times and never paid a penny. My wife and I just came back from New York where we're invited to the SALT conference, which is the most prestigious hedge fund conference. And I go just because there's so many heady and wealthy people. It's a giggle to be around them. I'm getting ready. I didn't even want to, but I got to go to Switzerland in 2 weeks, and then we're going to Nice, France, and then we're going to Germany, and then we're going to, for clients that I didn't want to go because I'm not in the mood to travel because of COVID. But I get all that, and it's fun. I get paid a lot, and I get first class travel, and it's very nice. I came from a very humble background, and I have gratitude, humility, and incredulity because I go like this all the time. Geez, I mean, I got a beautiful home. I got a beach house. I'm not saying it arrogant. I mean, no one in my family had any of that. And I've been blessed and I have friends at a much higher level than and they're very stimulating and they're
What
very quality people. And I've been,
what
yeah,
makes you be willing to help just a random entrepreneur that's doing well but not doing great? Why? I mean, other than the revenue, it can't be just the revenue. You got enough of that. Why
yeah,
are you wanting to help other people extract so much more?
well, I think part of it is because I'm aware of how much more is extractable. I mean, I see entrepreneurs as being very, very passionate, purposeful, and possibility based people, but a lot of them are islands. And I see them dedicating their lives to a business that has the expectation by them of whether they've verbalized it of giving them their economic security, their prosperity, their wealth, their satisfaction, their purpose. And I see how little people accept from time, effort, opportunity, money, capital, intellectual capital, relationship capital, marketing, advertising, interaction with people, buyers. And I know because I've been blessed, I know that you can make almost anything you do and everything you do produce a lot more. And the compound effect is so, and it's the thing that's wonderful. And I've been very blessed to do this is once you connect the dots for people and make, it's not really the money connection because that sounds crass, but the connection in their mind of how to go well beyond where they are, and you show them why, how, and that, why it's possible, how it's possible, and that. But that means if they have a product service company that genuinely provides a greater benefit, advantage, value to their audience than the people they're competing against in their category or in a related category, they have a moral responsibility in my mind to get as many people to deal with them instead of their competitors, but they don't really know how. I know how. And I've also got something that's a driver. You asked me my age. When you get to be my age and your runway is shorter, to the end of your life, so to speak, not being harassed, you want to make the biggest catalytic difference. You want to make a huge difference in anybody you can that is doing, you know, that's doing things at a higher level than the maddening crowd. So, it's easy and it may sound arrogant, but I've done it so many times. It's easy to go into a business and make all kinds of things perform better. But most people who have never had, I mean, nobody's going to have the experience I have. I can't. You asked me if I ever thought of having a big agency. No, but I've contemplated a number of times creating a consulting business, but I'm a very unique animal. The experiences I've had, the way my mind's been wired, all the expert that I've either helped or have benefited me and been mentors, the spectrum of prominent and not prominent people I've gotten to interact with on a worldwide basis. I mean, I've gotten to help the number one candy company in China, the number one cosmetic surgery group in Japan, the number one content management company in Germany, all through translation. I've gotten to help. I got two clients right now. One is the number one cybersecurity expert witness in the country. He just did the first virtual court trial, and because he's so powerful, he won his client won a $2.5 billion settlement against Cisco. I have another one totally different. They do cybersecurity for the Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, uh, uh, NSA, all the intel, Homeland Security. I get involved in all these exquisite things in the diversity. I mean, I got a client in Taiwan that's the number one psychologist in Asia, and they go to him. He gets 5,000 new clients a month because he solves unsolvable issues that diagnosticians and specialists can. I get this enormously stimulating constant awareness of all kinds of great things that can be distilled and taught to other people, Brett.
Well, that's why I was excited to talk to you, man, because my mission in life is to get the knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it.
I love that.
You know,
that's very purposeful. And I think that's, we're all on this earth to make people better off because we're in their life.
We should be.
And yeah. And if you can do that, it all comes back.
Well, is that part of the 50 Shades of Jay?
The 50 Shades of Jay is pretty cool. It years ago, I got sick of all the people that were, I'm going to use it. Well, you don't care. They're cock teasing. They're giving a lot of crap to try to get somebody's opt-in. So I went the other way. We didn't ask for an opt-in, and I took about 800 hours of audio, video, short courses, 4 books, and I just put it up and I called it 50 Shades of Jay. But if you go to any shade, each one might have 30 different resources in it. And I just put stuff that I used to sell because I thought, I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be a benefactor and a contributor, because most of the entrepreneurs, business owners, they're not large enough to afford me, but I can afford to contribute to them. And it all comes back. If they grow, they can become, viable for me from a compensated. If they don't grow, they might know somebody. And a true entrepreneur, I don't know if you know the difference. A true entrepreneur. Oh, I'll tell you one thing. This is pretty funny in conclusion. I was part of Entrepreneur Magazine in the very beginning. When we did it, nobody even knew how to pronounce the word entrepreneur, let alone what it meant. We had to send out our offerings in a big envelope, and it needed to be big because we had to put a reproduction of Webster's dictionary explanation. First of all, phonetically, how to pronounce it, and then what it meant. And most people don't know what a true entrepreneur means versus a proprietor. They think they're entrepreneurs and they're just proprietors that are basically sucking oxygen out of commerce. A real entrepreneur is someone who's making a difference, adding a very distinctive value. They're making a better experience. They understand the holistic benefit. They see their product or service not just transactionally sold, but when it's at work in somebody's life post sale. It's a whole different mindset, Brett.
Well, I can tell you right now, you're never going to get this much experience in a 1-hour podcast ever again. Folks, you better share this out. If it ain't for you, it's got to be for someone you know. If you're a business owner, you were listening, dude, I don't know how much better it gets. Shoot him an email. See if he can show you how to extrapolate millions of dollars more out of your business. And then go check out his book. You got Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got. That's a book.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And I'll give you the file if you want to put it up. We got lots of books we give away because, if you're trying to make a difference in your business, you need all the help you can, because you can't. And if your life is expended in 1 or 2 fields, here's the last concept. It's pretty profound. There's a fallacy, Brad, in the concept of best practices. And the reason is best practices are typically the best practices that people in that industry know. It's not the highest, best, most profitable, safest, fastest, most efficient, effective, compelling. It's only what that industry, there's far better practices that exist outside an industry. If you think about where breakthroughs come from, this is, I created something called funnel vision as opposed to tunnel vision years ago. And because I realized that breakthroughs Brad, most of the time do not come from within, they come from without. And a couple of concluding thoughts. Fiber optics that transformed telecommunication wasn't created for telecommunication. It came from aerospace and was borrowed. Federal Express transformed the whole overnight delivery concept by borrowing what's called the hub and spoke check clearing process that the Federal Reserve Bank uses to make sure people don't bounce checks. Viagra came from a heart medicine. Rogaine came from a pimple medicine. I don't have my pen here, but either the ballpoint pen or the roll-on deodorant borrowed from each other. So the breakthroughs you're looking for are more likely than not going to be found within your industry. They're going to just give you incremental growth. And when you're just doing incremental, you can do a little bit better or a little bit worse, but you're not going to have any advantage. If you're utilizing methodology, strategy, techniques, all kinds of concepts outside your industry that most everyone else has never even heard of, and then you combine hybrids of multiple ones, that's where you get explosive, competitive, and profit boosting advantage. And if I can leave people with that awareness, whether I ever touch them or not, hopefully they're better off because we've had this conversation.
That's a good way to close it. That's kind of what I heard and all that was this. You can't get out of the same shit you get yourself into using the same logic you got yourself into that shit.
That's Einstein. That is Einstein. That's insanity. The definition of insanity, thinking the same thing is going to get you any different outcome.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Folks, like I said, share this episode out, man. Someone needs to hear it. Maybe it's an entrepreneur, cousin, brother, sister, mother, or it was meant for you. Until next time, make sure you go rate the podcast, leave a comment. Until you get back, I'll see you next time.
Dropping bombs with the real Brad Lee. Subscribe now.